Hello, my name is Cody Chipp, and I work for the Aleutian and Pribilof Islands, a tribal health organization that provides medical and mental health services to the region of the Aleutian and Pribilof Islands in Alaska. I'm speaking to you on behalf of AIA International, one of the permanent participants of the Arctic Council, to talk about mental health and suicide considerations in the Aleutian and Pribilof Islands. Unfortunately, I was unable to make the travel to this meeting, but I hope you find this presentation informative. To root our discussion, I'd like to add some geography. The Aleutian and Pribilof Islands are approximately 800 air miles or 1,300 kilometers southwest of Anchorage. Some of our communities are further west than Hawaii and further south than Juneau, which makes us a sub-Arctic region, but the struggles we face are heavily dependent on Arctic, which I'll go into momentarily. Some of the contextual considerations regarding service provision in the Aleutian and Pribilof Islands is that our communities are primarily Anungan or historically referred to as Aleuts. The Aleut people were a cultural group that had the earliest contact with the Russians and faced acculturation far sooner than many other cultural groups in Alaska. The Russians basically came over and enslaved Aleuts to harvest sea otters and northern fur seals for the fur trade. That slavery or internment basically continued with the U.S. government upon the purchase of Alaska from the Russians in the 1800s. The islands are geographically isolated and we experience a lot of severe weather and natural hazards. We have extreme storms with hurricane force winds, we're at risk of tsunamis, and we have regular active volcanoes which can disrupt air travel and as well as cause respiratory problems with the ash fallout. Our communities are very small. They range from a community of 16 people upwards of 7,000 people. The largest community in the region is in Alaska, also referred to as Dutch Harbor, where there's approximately 7,000 people. The community is highly diverse, and actually the Anungan population is a very small minority of that community, making up only about 350 individuals of the total 7,000. Our communities rely heavily on the ocean and are between the Gulf of Alaska and the Bering Sea. We experience a lot of seasonal employment with commercial fishing and subsistence activities. A number of our smaller communities face underemployment or unemployment, with the exception of commercial fishing in the summertime. With regard to mental health and suicide, the suicide statistics in the region are difficult to track due to the small population. One recent estimate, which is still a bit dated, puts the suicide rate similar to the national average of about 13 per 100,000, which is dramatically lower than the state of Alaska average, which is around 20 per 100,000, and Alaska Native groups as a broader cultural group at about 45 per 100,000. However, this rate can fluctuate dramatically within the region due to the small population size. Some of the factors that we're seeing influencing suicide include a history of interpersonal violence or domestic violence, substance use concerns, and historical trauma. So those are some of the emphasis our organization is really focused on, is the prevention of interpersonal violence, substance use, and trying to find ways to heal from intergenerational trauma. So we're focused on healthy relationships, anti-bullying campaigns, and building our capacity for substance use treatment. In regard to intergenerational trauma, we're trying to incorporate educational outreach and informational sessions around intergenerational healing, discussing how boarding schools throughout Alaska, and particularly in the region and World War II, created a path of trauma passed down intergenerationally, as well as personal and family trauma related to domestic violence and sexual assault. Some of the challenges we face in the region in our intervention and prevention efforts is one of those is the stigma of mental health care. Given that our communities are very small, and if someone goes to the clinic regularly, some people start questioning if they have any health conditions, or if they're meeting, with me as an itinerant provider when I travel out to the region. Meeting with them in their homes or in the clinics, it can raise questions. So keeping things confidential is paramount importance. As noted before, we have also limited access to intensive services. We have some logistical challenges given the severe weather we experience. It's also very expensive to travel in the region, and we rely heavily on air travel. It costs about $1,200 round trip from Anchorage to Unalaska, and then another $400 to $800 from Unalaska to the other communities, depending on the community you're traveling to. Also, like other rural and remote providers, we face challenges in recruitment and retainment of staff. Climate change is also a significant challenge, as we are dependent heavily on the ocean, and with ocean acidification and warming of water, we're having extreme ecological changes Over the past couple of summers, we've had severe mass seabird die-offs. We're seeing changes in fish stocks, which then affects commercial fishing and also affects the seal population for subsistence harvests. We are also experiencing extreme weather events leading to coastal erosion and infrastructure damages. Another challenge we face is demographic changes, with the younger generation leaving to urban centers for educational work opportunities. This can result in smaller communities, with fewer children being born and raised in the community, which affects funding for schools and other services. Although the demographic change is occurring, we're also seeing that as an opportunity to build resilience and protective factors against suicide and other concerns, as well as protective factors against climate change and demographic changes. A lot of regional corporations and other community groups are providing a significant support for school scholarships and other training to help build capacity within the region. This is particularly helpful when you're coupling education with cultural revitalization efforts to really provide an opportunity for the Aleut people to have a foot in two worlds to support healthy communities. Throughout our communities, there is a strong emphasis on cultural revitalization and language revitalization. The organization I work for also has a focus on engaging communities towards prevention, as noted before, particularly around domestic violence, substance use, and suicide. Finally, many of our communities host annual cultural camps, which connect youth and elders in subsistence and traditional activities. In our Anchorage office, we also host what's called the Urban Anungan Culture Camp, where individuals that live in the Anchorage Urban Center can come to our facility and engage in traditional cultural practices. We see kids as little as young as 3, upwards to elders in their 70s and 80s. So again, thank you for taking the time to listen. I'm sorry I was not able to present in person. However, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to email me at the address provided on screen. Thank you.